Welcome to the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show. This is our 85th show in our third season. Today is January 20th, 2022. My name is Andy Zee, and I'm coming to you from Los Angeles, California. You are in the right place, watching the right show at the right time to know and change the world. The situation we face is nothing less than this. It's something terrible or something truly emancipating. We face profound crisis and deepening divisions and the looming possibility of civil war and the revolution that is urgently needed. Note well that there are two sharply different alternative futures that are posed, something terrible or something truly emancipating, with a profound crisis rooted in the system we live under, giving rise to deepening divisions between those who govern and rule over us, with the divisions going all the way down, cleaving the whole of society. This divide permeates everything, from whether the truth about the roots of this country in slavery and a truly depraved white supremacy gets taught in the schools, to whether or not people follow the science and act with concern for others in response to COVID-19, or say fuck you to everyone but themselves. The divide is so deep that the possibility of civil war looms. Yet, with this, a positive way that things could go, a different road than the road this country and the world is careening down, is truly possible. And that road would truly be an emancipating future. And it can only be reached by taking the road of a revolution. Something terrible or something truly emancipating. To comprehend all of that with our eyes wide open, we need to see not just the surface that's in the news, but what lies underneath, the roots of the problem. You need a way, a method, an approach to clearly understand this. And just as crucial, in order to wrench a positive emancipating future from this situation, there needs to be a guide and a strategy. The thing is, there is a foundation to understand this sharply posed situation we face, and there is a roadmap to the positive future. And that is the subject and mission of the third season of the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show. The foundation and the roadmap are in a major new work by Bob Avakian, the revolutionary leader and the author of The New Communism. What I have just spoken of is the title of his work. Something terrible or something truly emancipating, profound crisis, deepening divisions, the looming possibility of civil war, and the revolution that is urgently needed. A necessary foundation and a basic roadmap for this revolution. This talk is available on revcom.us, the website with whom we produce this show. Revolution is not a word, a wish, let alone a path to lead people on that we throw around lightly. It is a difficult road. It requires hard work and sacrifice. And if we're not the only way out of the madness and horror that we and the world really does face, it would be irresponsible for us to advocate and work for such a real revolution. To understand why we urgently need such a revolution, to know what a real revolution is and how to prepare for it, to know how to carry it forward and how to win, to organize and prepare the people for this revolution, and what its goal really must be for people here and our brothers and sisters are all over the world to be free from the exploitation and the oppression of the capitalist imperialist system that rules the world. All this requires science. What is that? It is an objective understanding of the world as it actually is. It requires a true understanding of what we face, and not some pretty sounding promises that cover over the reality, words and programs that blind and deceive and leave all that oppresses people in place. This scientific approach to society and revolution, this scientific understanding of the world that really could be a world free of exploitation and oppression, yes, the hard and liberating road, is what B.A., Bob Avakian, and the RNL show bring. It frames and is the content of today's show, and it's the frame and content of our coming season. So let's get to it. We're going to begin today's show with an interview with Noche Diaz, the national spokesperson for the revolution clubs in this country. Noche is a powerful speaker. He's a friend and an insightful comrade and a follower of Bob Avakian. We're going to kick it about the situation we face, the importance of this new work by Bob Avakian, and what we have to do now and what you have to do now. We're also going to feature one part of a new piece that B.A. Bob Avakian just wrote that's titled Some key points regarding something terrible or something truly emancipating. Truths we need to get free. And after this, we'll hear from Sunsara Taylor, who in the last month, along with others, issued a call for a new movement, Rise Up for Abortion Rights. Just yesterday, Sunsara filed a dispatch from the front of the Supreme Court of the United States in Washington, D.C., and in conjunction with this segment on abortion rights, we're going to hear an excerpt from a talk by Bob Avakian on how revolution can finally end the oppression of women. And then, in line with our approach this season of being on the move and reporting from around the country, we're going to have a brief report on the hunger strike at Rikers Island, a horrendous island prison in New York City. And then we're going to close today's show with a revolution rhyme for this historic time performed by a member of the Chicago Revolution Club, Roosevelt. So hang around for that.
Hey, you. Stop whatever you're doing, because right now you need to listen to or read this new work from Bob Avakian. Something terrible or something truly emancipating. Right now this country is in a profound crisis with deepening divisions. There's a whole part of this country and the people who run it who are fascist and are fighting for an openly white supremacist and male supremacist future. They have given up on even pretending that this country should be about freedom and justice for all. And we don't even want to go back to and just fight for the times when this country was pretending to be about freedom and justice for all. We want to fight for a whole different, truly emancipatory future. So instead of trying to just give up or go for self, falling into despair and hopelessness, we need real hope. And that's what Bob Avakian is providing in this new work. A roadmap for how in this very ugly situation we could wrench a possibility of a real revolution to do away with this whole system. Not in some far off distant future, but in this time. So let's not waste this historic opportunity. Let's not squander the chance that we have to make this revolution. Because what's missing and what we all need to actively and urgently go to work on is bringing into being millions and millions of a revolutionary people and organize a force for revolution, first in the thousands and ultimately in the millions.
That was Noche Diaz, a national spokesperson for the Revolution Clubs, doing a social media announcement of the new talk by Bob Avakian on social media in Los Angeles, California. And Noche is here with me in Los Angeles, California at the Revolution Nothing Less Studios. Welcome, Noche.
Thank you for having me, Andy. I'm very excited to be here.
Okay, well, we're hoping, Noche, that you're on the show a lot this year. We began our third season talking about that we're going to be on the move this year. We're going to be a faster paced show. We're going to be more impromptu because we're really setting out to organize thousands of people, ultimately millions of people, into this movement for an actual revolution, training hundreds of people in the science of revolution as developed and science of the new communism as developed by Bob Avakian. So I'm hoping you're on the show quite a bit this year. And
me too, and I'll do my best to keep up with you. All
right. Well, look, you know, this talk by Bob Avakian, Noche, followed by about half a year a piece that the RevComs put out, a declaration, a call to get organized now for a real revolution. So we've been telling people over the summer and this fall that this is a rare time when revolution becomes possible, and now's the time to get organized. But I was just wondering, since you've been leading discussions of this and been out on the streets, when you got this piece and read it for the first time, what struck you? What moved you this time when you really got into the depth of this piece?
Well, one thing is with the declaration and call, and then when he followed that up with rare time when revolution becomes possible, and then now with this new talk, something terrible, something truly emancipating, there's a need to sort of continually come to terms with how historic of a moment and opportunity we are actually living in. For anyone who has, been alive long enough to see times when society has gone through big changes, it can become sort of feeling like maybe this is just another one of those times. And, you know, I myself have seen movements rise and fall. You know, there was the Occupy Wall Street wave that spread across the country. I was part of, you know, several rounds of uprisings against police murders, including in New York, against the stop and frisk policy. And there have been times when different outrages spark different upheaval in society, and it seems like, oh, we're in a different time, right? But if you look at how things develop historically, and what he really takes even more time to walk through in this new piece, you really start to get a deeper appreciation and sense of, oh, this is not just another time when it's possible to get a lot of things going. This is not just another time when there could be a wave on the side of the people against injustice. This is not just another time when we could seize on to make advances in building our movement or anything like that, as important as those things are at times. And you know, we've talked a lot about the need to seize on such jolts and in order to make advances in the revolution in the past. But in this new piece, when he walks through, like, I was kind of stunned when he started with, as an example, the collapse of the Soviet Union. Not because I didn't know that happened, but because it's not where I would have gone to think about how to make sense of a rare time when a revolution becomes possible, because a revolution wasn't made in that certain situation. But you do see, when he walks through that, how it is that, you know, that wasn't just a wave of big changes and people getting moving. That was the whole landscape of the entire, you know, world changed after the Soviet Union collapsed. Okay, and the breakdown of that formation was something people couldn't even imagine before it actually happened. And he really gets you inside these dynamics of what happens when, okay, not just when you have a strong movement or whatever it is, but what happens when, because of the workings of the system, a ruling class is faced with a situation where parts of them decide it is no longer worth holding on to the way things have been, and are determined to actually take things into a whole different place, and how that creates even more ground for major upheaval and changes that are even independent of revolutionaries and what you might be doing at a given time. And really coming to grips with, oh, we are in a time, you know, on that level of historic magnitude. Okay, not just, again, another wave of, you know, something good on the side of the people, which, you know, would be important enough to recognize. But we are in a moment where the whole, whether or not this country continues to exist in the way it has, or whether it even has to continue to exist at all, could be coming into question and coming onto the agenda. And these are the kinds of times we've been saying we need to get ready for and be preparing for. And we're in a situation now like this. And what are the kinds of things in a situation like this that we have to recognize, that to be able to take advantage of, to be able to really make good on this chance? So, you know, in reading this the first time, that was something that, you know, new appreciation for, and continuing and deepening, you know, understanding of, as well as then what that means for what we must be doing in these times that is different from what we are normally doing.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, there is a depth of analysis in this piece, because it's a big statement to say that revolution is now, or could now be possible. It's much more, you know, in a country like this, I think people know that most of the time, or they sense this, they don't necessarily know it, they sense this, that most of the time, revolution is not possible. You can work towards it, you can prepare for it, but you need a certain coming together of different elements that make it possible when you could actually overthrow the system and ultimately meet and defeat the forces of repression that this system has at its disposal. And this is one of those times. And so Bob Avakian goes into the three characteristics of a revolutionary situation in this piece. And it's one of the reasons why you really need to get into it. He's developed them further. But the first of these three conditions is the fact that the ruling class can no longer rule in the old way, that they become divided, and at least a section of the ruling class no longer believes, as you were pointing out, in what has cohered the society. With the most stark, which we're going to talk, or one of the stark things that we're going to talk about a bit, is that they don't believe in the peaceful succession of power. This is something they've always agreed on over the course of the history of the country. But Trump is still saying, and he had a rally this week where his audience believed that he was going to be named president any day now. I mean, this is some of the lunacy that's involved, but it's deadly serious in terms of what they've prepared. And so when people have been accustomed to the way the country has been ruled for some time, that also can bring to them the fact that this no longer exists, can set off a certain amount of despair and panic, but it also,
or a lot of confusion. Like you were saying in your introduction. You need some method and some understanding to get underneath the surface of it. Even some of the lunacy of it actually helps to mask what's going on and some of the dynamics of it. And you get told all the time, Biden in his speeches talk about, Trump has got a big ego, that's why he couldn't admit defeat and all this stuff. And it doesn't seem to just make a whole lot of sense, but actually this is something that tends to happen in societies, and this is again going back to what you were laying out about some of the things that go into a revolutionary situation. Again, these are not just because we like to say that there's three ingredients. It's because this is kind of how things work, and how big major fundamental changes in society tend to become
right. And that example you gave is one of three examples he gives here of where in the Soviet Union, which at the time the Soviet Union dissolved, it had been in name a communist country, the way China is today, but it was actually a state capitalist country. And the thing that had happened, and that he points out here, this was a situation where the rulers of that country no longer believed in the coherence of and the legitimacy of their system, was highly corrupt in that sense. I'm not just talking about financially corrupt, but corrupt in the sense they didn't actually believe in it. And you're starting to see that now. But there's also the fact in that situation that people can see, where there's a great divide at the top of society, where people can sense when these people are fighting each other that we might have a chance to break through. And another example he gives here is of how come the slaves in the United States in the 1860s, when the Civil War broke out between two sections of the ruling class, the Confederacy in the South that wanted slavery, and in the North where they were trying to hold the country together, the slaves saw an opportunity to break free and joined at that point the Union Army. But I just wanted to move on to another point that from your opening social media TikTok, where you say this gives you hope. This can give humanity hope. I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, because I think this is something that really grips a lot of people. I remember when you were a youth, no longer that, and from the South Bronx, and the question of not having hope was a big thing that had really bothered you as a young person, and a lot of despair about, is there any way out of this mess that we're in, and the horrific things that you saw all around you, family, overall. And I think it's important for people to speak to the people who need this revolution the most about why somebody like yourself is filled with the passionate intensity and the scientific understanding to say, you know what, we could actually do this and get this off our backs. And you were speaking, so I wanted to, if you could bring some of that to our audience.
Yeah, well, I guess I would say there's sort of two levels to this. On one level, you're speaking about, being a youth coming up in the Bronx and all that stuff. And, the point is not, this is what happens when you're in the Bronx. This is a situation for a lot of people who are, coming up in this society. And frankly, your life is very small. It's filled with a lot of struggles and sacrifices that are mainly about getting to the next day or the next week, and maybe some of your family along with you. And you're ground up or kept, your head is kept really low down. And to be able to see a way through all that, to lift your head, to see the larger picture, and to see that there's actually something that your life can count for that is not just for yourself, but that could be about getting humanity to a whole different place. That takes a lot of leadership, a lot of struggle. I did as much as I could on my own to try to figure some stuff out. But once I got in touch with, Avakian and what he was working on, I was like, oh, okay, I'm not alone in wanting to even think about how to take over the whole world and make it different, not just a corner or, improve a little thing over here. But I do want to come back to, you're mentioning the video, because that's very important in a historic, world historic sense, in terms of what we have with this leadership. But it's also extremely important in this situation that we are in now, when a lot of people look out at the chaos and the divisions in society and the ugly injustices that seem to just get more ugly, the existential, meaning life or death, for humanity, possibilities of the climate change and the environmental, catastrophe, as well as the dangers of nuclear war, all that, you look at that and it's pretty dark. To be able to confront the full depths of that, and through all of it, see the possibility for something to come out of this that is not only positive, but actually possible. And not just a good dream to think about, to console yourself in the face of a lot of ugliness, but real world possibility that could come about not easily, not just, on its own, and through a lot of struggle, but actually is possible. That changes the game in terms of what our lives can count for, not just in general, but right now in these times. These are moments in history that some people never get to see. Mm-hmm. Okay, these are moments in history where changes become possible that people have worked generations for. And we who do see that are the ones who have a chance to waste that and sort of just keep on going along. But we also have a chance, especially because we've gotten this leadership in Avakian, who's been struggling for people to see the possibilities right in the crucible of this kind of situation. We have the chance to actually seize on that and contribute something great to humanity and historic that could be something that changes the whole course of not just, our movement, not just of what we're doing here, but of how this whole, situation in society and ultimately the world is shaping up.
I think that larger purpose is tremendously inspiring to people, but there's also a way that people have been thinking about things that holds them back from seeing this. And, Bob Avakian wrote a piece that's called Hope for Humanity on a Scientific Basis. And in this piece that we're talking about and that's been introduced to the world right now, Something Terrible is Something Truly Emancipating, he goes hard at the way people are thinking because, you were saying it's a dark time. Well, people have a lot of darkness in them. There's, people are this, especially combined with the pandemic, there's a lot of depression, there's suicide. I was listening to a big hit song from Europe, a Belgian singer on suicide the other day, Stromae. There's people are at each other. Our youth in the inner cities are killing each other, and everybody's out for themselves. That's that Scarface mentality in the city and in the inner cities, and then on the campuses and in all through society. There's a selfie, me first, individualist culture and cancel culture going at each other. Here's a way to understand the world that we could actually get free. And people have to shed a lot of what they've been thinking and how they've been thinking. And Bob Avakian brings in this piece a hope that comes from seeing, damn, this is a lot of foolishness we've been into. And we can't actually get free if we don't actually all fight for that. And instead of taking it out on ourselves, taking it out on each other, instead of getting diverted into all kinds of bullshit, we could actually work for the goal that you're talking about. Is there's a transformation that people have to go through, and they can go through it, especially in a rare time like this.
I think that's important. One is the word hope can even get thrown around sometimes, and it's very important that you made the point of this, scientifically grounded hope, and again in this real world possibility, not hype. Okay, not something that we can just sort of say, oh, it's all going to work out. Come over here. It's going to be great for you. No, we got to go and tell people the truth, especially in this time. Did it again. Especially in this time. We need to actually go out and tell people the truth. Truths that hurt, about what people are caught up in that's got them messed over and messing each other over. And people are, look, let's be honest. There's people who you talked about earlier, think revolution is, impossible and there's no chance we have to go up against them. And it is daunting, when you don't see anything but yourself and the people around you to think about going up against all that. I remember the youth, some who were caught up in a lot of this fighting over corners and different, markets, shares and, different neighborhoods. Say to me, after a couple of rounds of going back and forth, I think you might be right. I can see that there's something wrong here, that they've got us all like this. But if we try to go up against all that, we don't have a shot. If I'm just going along fighting someone just like me over very little, at least it's 50-50. Mm-hmm. And here's an example of how people sights are so lowered, so devoid of hope that they're trapped in this situation. But the answer to that is not to just say, oh, we're so sorry you're oppressed. We have hope that you're going to do better and something good is going to come out. We have to say, get out of this shit. We have something that we could really live for. 50-50 is, mathematically not true either, but but that's not the point. The point is our lives can count for something that is actually meaningful. We don't have to just go out taking each other down. We can actually live for something, and yes, when necessary, fight and die for something that could bring about a future really worth living in for all of humanity, if we look squarely at where this is coming from, where this is going, and what we could wrench out of this with the understanding that we have. But we're not going to just sort of get there by telling people, oh, we have the hope over here and something really nice is going to happen. Don't worry. We have to go out and fight with people of what's worth living and dying for and what's got people living this system's way. Because that thinking also they didn't come up with themselves. That's this capitalist dog eat dog stuff. That's the same thing you hear when you turn on the TV and hear about all these companies who are fighting each other all over the world over how to exploit people. It's just coming out of the mouths of people who don't really have that much to be fighting over.
Yeah, look, one of the things, like I said, I expect you to be on this show a lot this year. People need to get into this work because there's a deep analysis of this split at the top of society and divide all the way through society that makes it possible to make revolution at this time. It goes deeply into why we need an actual revolution in the nature of the capitalist imperialist system. I'm not going to run that all down right now. Last episode, you can go back and watch it on our YouTube channel. We break that down a bit, what the nature of the system is and why it can't be reformed. That's very important. It can't be reformed. It can't be fixed. It can't be repaired. We're fighting some of the same battles today that people fought 50 years ago, and we're still in this situation. You have to get rid of the system. It's a cancer that has to be cut out. The system has to be overthrown. This piece goes into all that, but then it also develops, as we said, and in the title, it says a roadmap for the revolution we urgently need. So people need to get into this, but they also need to get with the revolution clubs, of which you are the national spokesperson. And speaking of hope, there are principles that we can live by. They're not the principles of me first and fuck everybody else. They're the principles of the points of attention of the revolution club. There's a purpose to the revolution clubs. And I think it'd be important in this first segment if we talked a little bit about what these clubs are and how you can get with it.
Yeah, I think that is very important. And again, okay, we have this hope, but we do have to go out and struggle with people over what is worth living for and, yes, when necessary, dying for. And those points of attention for the revolution concentrate that. We're not out for self. We're out for all of humanity. And what humanity needs is revolution and communism. Okay, we're not about men being real men and standing up, and actually women have to stand up too, and transgendered people and all different kinds of folks need to be standing up as revolutionaries and as comrades for the emancipation of humanity. Okay, we're not just about our people, whatever you might think that is. That's about all different kinds of nationalities, cultures, and languages standing up together, and and not doing it for anything less than revolution and emancipation, not for revenge, not to settle scores with other people like us or to people who had a little bit more privilege than us. And it's not, these are some of the principles that you'll learn, as part of this, and that are concentrated in these points of attention, which are not our version of a cancel culture either. These are all the reasons why you don't belong in the revolution. It's because you violate all of these principles. Almost everybody will start off and won't be living up to those principles at first. That's the point. We're coming out of this world and we're fighting our way out of it by transforming ourselves in the process of changing the world, not getting ourselves all right. And once you've lived up to that, then you can be part of fighting to make this revolution. We have to do that as part of one process. And these principles, these give you a guideline or sort of a way to focus up on what are some of the key ways of thinking that go along with this system and that we're fighting to get out of, and that go along with the world that we're trying to get to. So that's what these principles are. And then these clubs is somewhere you go to not only learn about these principles, but to begin to work together with others. You mentioned, okay, we're not going to get into it here, but these clubs have to constantly return to why we need an actual revolution. When you talk about the kind of struggle and sacrifice that's involved in making revolution and what we have to do to be able to actually do that, okay, if you're not proceeding from a scientific approach and understanding of why we need an actual revolution, then it's silly to be talking about this. And it is just a cool kids corner or the, radical leftist, grouping. And that's not what this is about. This is for people who want to be part of a organized, disciplined, bold, and fearless force that is serious about bringing this system down as soon as possible. At the core of this, we RevComs follow Bob Avakian because he is the most advanced scientific leadership on the planet, okay? And we've never had leadership like this, and this enables us to bring people into this process, with a clear sense of what we're up against and where this could go. And we have a constitution that he's written that could clearly replace this system with something truly on the road to
constitution for a new socialist.
That's right. So,
after the revolution.
Yeah, that's right. Not just a constitution for our clubs.
Yeah.
A constitution for a new socialist republic that will replace this society after the revolution. Okay, that sets up a whole different government, economy, and a society that's in transition to a different world. Not to go on and on, but these are some of the things that, again, what it means to be in the Revolution Club, what you could be, the process you become part of. And then again, the work of the Revolution Club involves, which we've been, sort of talking about, fighting the power and transforming the people for revolution, because people need to come together and act as a unified, disciplined force to have a big impact, opposing the crimes and injustices of this system, defending each other from the official and unofficial violence that comes down on people in different ways, whether it's the police murders of Black and other oppressed peoples, whether it's the attacks on women seeking abortions and the right to abortion, whether it's the ways in which these fascist thugs have brought guns to rallies and shot people down or ran them over with cars. This cannot be going down unopposed, and our point of attention number 6 makes clear we're not calling for attacks against anybody, unprovoked attacks. But they have no right to carry out this kind of violence, and this situation is one where if that is not faced with a determined and disciplined revolutionary force defending people from that kind of attack, these people will have the future and will make further advances in bringing about that something terrible that we've been talking about.
All right, thank you, Noche. Those are some important points on the Revolution Clubs. We're going to be getting into the clubs quite a bit this season, as this is a key form of organization for the masses of people to get prepared for, to get organized for an actual revolution. We're going to be getting to a few other things in this show, so I appreciate your being here today. I'm looking for you coming back, and I wonder if you could stick around a bit more and come back on as we introduce some of the segments towards the end of the show.
Sure, I'll be around.
Okay. So nice of you. Okay. So now we want to move to a piece that Bob Avakian just wrote that is up on revcom.us. It's titled Some Key Points Regarding Something Terrible or Something Truly Emancipating, which we've been discussing. Truths we need to get free. This piece makes 3 big points, very concisely, very sharp. It's brilliant. The first point is this system is not democracy, it's capitalism, imperialism. We need to get rid of this whole system. We'll be getting into that more in future episodes. The section we are going to get into today, that's been illustrated by the crew of the Revolution Nothing Less show, is titled "The Fascists Are Not Radicals. They Are Reactionaries." And the third section is called "Mode of Production, Mode of Thinking. We Need a Complete Revolution." So I want to go now to the video that was put together of this second section. Fascists are not radicals, they are reactionaries. This is a key part of understanding that section of the ruling class who have discarded all the norms of bourgeois democracy. Let's watch.
Some key points regarding something terrible or something truly emancipating. Truths we need to get free by Avakian.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The fascists are not radicals. They are reactionaries. The mainstream media in this country, such as CNN, continually refer to the followers of Donald Trump and others who are seeking to institute fascism as radicals.
Radical.
But they are not radicals at all. Radical has to do with root. It involves getting to the root of things. In this case, getting to the root of the system in this country, the system of capitalism imperialism, which is rooted in the capitalist mode of production, based on ruthless exploitation of billions of people throughout the world. Including more than 150 million children. These fascists are fanatical supporters of this system of exploitation and oppression. They are not radicals, but reactionaries. They are reacting with vicious insanity against changes that have allowed some measure of inclusion for people who, in the history of this country, have been subjected to laws and customs that have treated them as less than fully human, as inferiors, outcasts, and aliens, including Black people and other people of color, women, LGBT people, and immigrants, especially from non-European countries. These fascist-crazed outrage is also directed against others who are not white Christian fundamentalists, including people of different religions, and the growing number of atheists, agnostics, and others who are not followers of traditional religions. It is true that what these fascists are aiming for is drastic change and fanatical opposition to the mainstream of democratic capitalist society today. Some of these fascists may even throw around the word revolution.
The Trump revolution.
But what they are really about is not revolution, but restoration. Restoring the kinds of openly oppressive racial and gender relations that existed before the 1960s. Or even looking back to the situation that existed before the Civil War of 1861 to 1865, with literal slavery, which is why many of these fascists go around waving the Confederate flag, the flag of the Southern slave owners and white supremacists. In terms of a real revolution in today's world, a revolution to overthrow this system of capitalism imperialism and put an end to slavery and oppression in any form, these fascists are fanatically opposed to this. They are firmly on the side of counter-revolution. It is those of us who are actual revolutionaries today, the revolutionary communists, who are the true radicals in the most correct and very best sense. In our scientific approach to understanding why the world is so messed up, we have dug down to the root of this system of worldwide exploitation and oppression, capitalism, imperialism, and identify this as the fundamental cause of the terrible conditions of the masses of humanity and the threat to the very existence of humanity. On this basis, we are determined to overthrow and uproot this whole system and replace it with a radically different system on the road to the emancipation of humanity as a whole, which is set forth in the Constitution for the new socialist republic in North America.
Next up is a dispatch from Sunsara Taylor, recorded on Wednesday of this week in front of the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. Sunsara is announcing, again, the call for a mass movement of sustained, determined protests to demand the right of women to abortion, the right of women to be full human beings. Sunsara has formed a new organization with other people, RiseUp4Abortion rights, and she is calling on people to join her at the Supreme Court this coming Saturday, January 22nd, the 49th, and hopefully not the last anniversary of the Roe v. Wade decision that gave women the right to abortion.
This is Sunsara Taylor with the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show. I'm also one of the initiators of a new effort, RiseUp4AbortionRights.org. And I am calling on everyone who believes that women are full human beings, not incubators or baby-making machines, to join me here at the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. this Saturday, January 22nd at noon, to declare to the world, we refuse to let the U.S. Supreme Court deny women's humanity and decimate their rights. We call on everyone to join us in fighting for abortion on demand and without apology. You need to be here with me this Saturday, because if we do not change things fast, this could be the last year where women have the legal right to abortion nationwide. A Christian fascist, woman-hating movement has been hammering at the right to abortion for decades. They have carried out acts of violence and terror and even murder. They have harassed and shamed women. They've passed hundreds and hundreds of anti-abortion restrictions. And now, they have a majority on the Supreme Court, and they stand poised to overturn this right possibly as early as this spring. This cannot be allowed to go down. Forced motherhood is female enslavement. It shatters the lives of women. It forces them into abusive relations or traps them in them. It forces women to drop out of school, to give up their careers, to give up their dreams. It treats women as less than fully human. This is something no one should accept and no one should allow to go down. Yet at this very hour, the Democratic Party and way too many so-called pro-choice leaders are capitulating in advance. In one form or another, they're telling you to plan and prepare for a post-Roe world, a world without abortion protections. We need to do the opposite. We need to summon a fight to defeat this assault on abortion, not prepare for a world where women are enslaved. That's nothing that should be prepared for, compromised with, or capitulated to. We need to wage a fight. That is, again, why I'm calling on you to join us here at the Supreme Court this Saturday, because our message needs to ring out nationwide. This is a declaration and a beginning. We need to involve thousands and soon millions of people across this country in standing up and changing the whole political atmosphere and what the Supreme Court feels it can get away with. We need acts of courage and defiance on the campuses, in the arts, in the sciences, and not just for one day. We need protest and resistance that comes back day after day relentlessly and wakes more people up and gathers more people and grows and does not stop and makes clear, again, to women haters everywhere, that you will not be able to take this right away and have your society function. And don't say it can't be done. We've seen the outpourings of fury of women and others in Poland, in Argentina, and Mexico rock their societies and inspire the world. We need this and nothing less than this here, right now, because the lives of millions and millions of women and girls, future generations, and the character of the society that we are going to leave to future generations depends on what we do. So again, join me this Saturday. This is why you need to be here this Saturday, standing up, and start organizing now for International Women's Day across this country. March 8th, there needs to be protests and marches and rallies and sit-ins and acts of courage, acts of resistance nationwide. And from there, we're going to get even stronger and go even further. Sign up at RiseUp4Abortionrights.org. Get involved, become an organizer. Be here this Saturday as we kick off and going forward. And finally, I want to say, and I want to stress this, we need unity in this fight. We need to unite all who can possibly be united. People from different walks of life, people from different backgrounds, people of different political outlooks and programs, united in our determination not to see women slammed backwards and enslaved. I'm a communist revolutionary. I'm a follower of Bob Avakian. I come to this fight as part of lifting people's sights to an emancipating revolution and organizing them into this revolution to get rid of the system that is at the source of this and so many other attacks on our people here and around the world. And I'm going to fight for people to get with this revolution. But there needs to be people in this struggle for abortion rights from very different perspectives, putting forward their vision of the future, their program to get there, contending over what that's going to take, and we need to have those debates and arguments. We need to learn from each other as we stand shoulder to shoulder in unbreakable unity and implacable determination not to see women lose this right, because none of us want a future where women are enslaved. So again, join this struggle, RiseUp4Abortionrights.org, and be here this Saturday, January 22nd, the 49th anniversary of Roe v. Wade. It must not be the last anniversary. We are the ones who are going to change that. Join me here. Tell the world women are full human beings, not incubators, abortion on demand, and without apology.
That was Sunsara Taylor, and if you haven't seen last week's episode of the RNL show, watch it after this one, because there's an interview in that show that I did with Sunsara, where she speaks of why, as a revolutionary communist, she is taking up this fight. That interview is also a separate segment you can get there and spread to your friends. Next, I want to show you a film clip from Bob Avakian's 2012 speech, BA Speaks, Revolution Nothing Less. And in this short excerpt, Bob Avakian gets into why the liberation of women is bound together with revolution to emancipate all of humanity, bringing alive the need to unleash the fury of women as a mighty force for revolution. Watch.
Now, the oppression of women and all the horrors bound up with it can be ended, and something radically different and emancipating brought into being. Now, let's be honest, to many, especially many women, this may not seem possible, and frankly, hard to believe. But that is not only because of the way things are now, and the way so many men act so much of the time, but more fundamentally, because of the way things are now sets a certain framework and tone for people's thinking. Because the possibility of radical change cannot be seen to the degree that our vision and our sense of reality and of possibility is still confined within, conditioned by, and filtered through the dominating relations that are at the foundation of this whole system. And the traditions, values, ways of being and of thinking that constantly pour forth from and serve to perpetuate this system that we are forced to live under. In this way, they get us twice. Their system embodies and enforces all this horrific oppression, and it has people believing that this cannot be done away with. But the truth, which they try every way to keep people from seeing, is that we can be rid of this horrific oppression. But we can't do this by accepting the terms of this system or any part of its oppression. We can't do it half-stepping and halfway. That is why Basics 322 makes it very clear. You cannot break all the chains except one. You cannot say you want to be free of exploitation and oppression except you want to keep the oppression of women by men. You can't say you want to liberate humanity yet keep one half of humanity enslaved to the other half. The oppression of women is completely bound up with the division of society into masters and slaves, exploiters and exploited, and the ending of all such conditions is impossible without the complete liberation of women. All this is why women have a tremendous role to play, not only in making revolution, but in making sure there is all the way revolution. The fury of women can and must be fully unleashed as a mighty force for proletarian revolution. And as this statement is also emphasizing, the fight against the oppression of women and for all the way revolution is not just their fight. It is a fight that must be fully and vigorously taken up by men as well, by everyone who really wants to see an end to this system and all the horrors it means for the masses of humanity. Everyone who wants to see an end to the long night in which humanity has been divided into masters and slaves, exploiters and exploited, who wants to see a dawning of a new day for humanity. The only people who should fear and not join in with this unleashed fury of women are those who have a real stake in this system and want to keep it going with everything it does to people. The fact is that those this system has cast off, those it has treated as less than human, can be the backbone and driving force of a fight not only to end their own oppression, but to finally end all oppression and emancipate all of humanity.
At the top of the show, I spoke of a hunger strike at Rikers Island, the large prison in New York City on an island where people are held before their trial, often for years. And this hunger strike in response to the conditions of they're being kept in response to COVID is tremendously inspiring, deserves our support. That they can do this under just extreme repression indicates a potential for revolution, and it's something that needs to be both supported and also emulated, because the conditions that led them to be in Rikers and for this prison to even exist are another reason why we need a revolution.
In a country that is already a land of dungeons and hellholes of incarceration, Rikers has stood out. It was at one point the largest prison colony in the world until it was slated to be closed, and it's still open doing what it does. Most of the people there have never even been on trial for what they're being held for. And in New York City, going to Rikers Island for many youth is part of their coming-of-age story. A system that has this kind of future laid out for so many is a system that has no right to exist and that needs to be swept aside through an actual revolution. And that's why I was so inspired on January 8th to hear word of this heroic hunger strike coming from inside and the initiative. I am so proud of the New York City Revolution Club for standing with them and being out there.
Yeah, so what we're going to show is just a brief clip of a statement by somebody from the Fortune, a representative of the Fortune Society, which is an organization of formerly incarcerated people. And we're going to show you the Revolution Club, a member of the Revolution Club, reading from basics from the talks and writings of Bob Avakian. They went out to the prison gate, the bridge that goes over the water to Rikers in frigid cold. And so we wanted to bring you these two short clips.
Currently, it is a place of inhumanity. It is a place where trauma and pain is housed. The hunger strike is a direct result of the abuse and the neglect that they are experiencing.
I read from the words of Bob Avakian, revolutionary leader for an actual revolution here in North America. An appeal to those the system has cast off. Here, I'm speaking not only to prisoners, but to those whose life is lived on the desperate edge, whether or not they find some work, to those without work or even homes, to all those the system and its enforcers treat as much as so much human waste material. Raise your sights above the degradation and madness, the muck and demoralization. above the individual battle to survive and to be somebody on the terms of the imperialists, of fouler, more monstrous criminals than mythology has ever invented or jails ever held. Become a part of the human saviors of humanity, the grave diggers of this system, and the bearers of the future communist society. This is not just talk or an attempt to make poetry here. There are great tasks to be fulfilled, great struggles to be carried out, and yes, great sacrifices to be made to accomplish all this. But there is a world to save and to win. And in that process, those the system has counted as nothing can count for a great deal. They represent a great reserve force that must become an active force for the proletarian revolution.
Okay, Noche, we're coming to the end of this episode number 85 of the Revolution Nothing Less show. And at the end of the show, we're going to close this out with a new version of a revolution rhyme for this historic time by a RevCom poet. This new version is recorded by Roosevelt of the Chicago Revolution Club. And so I just want to say before you introduce the poem and we say goodnight that I've really enjoyed having you on the show. You're going to be on some more. We have a lot of things to get into this year, and as we grow and build a movement for an actual revolution, prepare to carry out the charge of the talk, something terrible or something truly emancipating, the charge of the declaration and call to get organized now for a real revolution. That's what we're doing. That's what we're inviting you to be a part of. So once again, I want to thank you, Noche, and let's go out with this song.
All right, Andy, it's been great, and I'm looking forward to many more. To just close us out with this rhyme, you know, I do want people to really listen to this poem. And once you're done listening to Roosevelt's version, go back and listen to the version done by Miles Soleil. And then go and make your own version, because the lyrics are now posted up on revcom.us. And I've seen the power of this, being read by different kinds of people. And I want you to, when you listen to this, think about the words of Roosevelt when they were part in Chicago of making plans for how to spread this. And he said this, about this poem and spreading it. It's not the gentle shower we need, but the thunder. Now listen to this poem and feel the thunder.
A revolution rhyme for this historic time. Get down. Some still think it's smart to act the fool with make-believe cool, to mock and stalk and kill each other, using and abusing one another, selling women, slinging dope, chasing money, squashing hope. And what we really need is hard to fight for what is right and know how to overthrow that big-time enemy that keeps us all from being free. This system, with this savage power, keeps us down, makes life sour. To hell with politicians posing as our friend. With them, this nightmare's never gonna end. Or living dead who straight up hate us, twisted fascist zummy brains, prejudice makes them insane. Like orange-haired Donald Trump, that woman-hating racist chump. And all those who want us dead or living in constant dread, down on our knees praying while they keep on slaying. The police who slaughter, suffocate, and smother, then do it to another, and smirk with a vicious grin, will we kill each other again? With this shit we're done. There's nothing ever really won. It's time to quit. Revenge, that endless cycle. Kids can't play or ride their bicycle. So let's go for the real solution. Get with the RevCom revolution. Get thousands, then millions just like us. Don't let the capitalist power psych us. Get us making bad decisions when there's a science, strategy, and plan, leadership, and vision. From no lie, an old white man. B.A. Bob Avakian. He is for real, not faking it. Revolutionary from the days with the Black Panthers. He kept on deep this whole time after. There's a real chance coming to get free, because those who rule us are now at each other's throat. But will we dare to make the most of this rare time we're living in? It's harder now to fool us with their talk of democracy for all. Their systems need to fall. We got the science to school us. The whole thing's ripping apart. But do we have the heart to rise above this shit and get ourselves fit to do what cries out to be done with so much that could be won? We need to get busy, make the oppressors dizzy as we get organized and ready, working steady for the hour to bring our power. If you're black or brown or any other color, show that you got the valor, the heart to fight for what is really right. Don't listen to any mess about going for something less than bringing down this system and the clowns who front for it. They're not fit to rule the earth. Their system's worth less than the foulest trash we need to smash it. Break it apart, heal the scars from living how they had us. So join with the ones that next street over. No more trying to blast us. Unite with the people far and wide, sisters, brothers, all justice lovers who can be on our side. These capitalist oppressors, cold-blooded aggressors, even with all their guns, the time has come to work so we can put them on the run. Fighting together to put an end to all that madness and begin to make the world a way worth living. A new day, a better way to be. Emancipation for humanity.